Can't wait.
Hear what happened to the Pacers flight into OKC?
I did hear.
Had to be diverted, to Tulsa? Because of a hurricane. Tornado?
Mm-hmm. Little hijinks already being played out there in OKC. I see how
you don't think that was legit?
I don't know, man. We put it past the Thunder to pull something like that.
Anthony Slater joining us with The Athletic, of course. He used to cover the Oklahoma City Thunder for the Oklahoman, and he joins us from Oklahoma City. Slates, how are you? How is it? What's it like to be covering the Thunder again as they're back in the finals?
Feels like 2012. I was an intern at the Oklahoman covering the finals when it was Heat Thunder, LeBron's first title with the Heat, actually.
Mm-hmm. Really, really enjoying your coverage this week. And the piece you had a couple days ago about how Steve Kerr started this whole thing when he was with the Suns by making a trade with Sam Presti and the Sonics in 2007. That's an incredible story, Slates. But that, in a way, that's where the acquisition of Shea actually started for them, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It is a Rashard Lewis sign-in trade to Orlando, if y'all remember Rashard Lewis. And Sam Presti's a 30-year-old GM at the time in Seattle. And Steve Kerr is the Phoenix GM. They're both first-time GM, summer of 2007. Same summer that the Sonics draft Kevin Durant. But that trade exception he got, $9 million, he then uses to absorb Kurt Thomas into a trade exception, and Steve Kerr's forced to trade Kurt Thomas because he's trying to salary dump in Phoenix. And long story short, he gets a pick in that trade. That pick is used on Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka later traded for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, a guy you know well. Mm-hmm. Sabonis and Oladipo flipped to Indiana for Paul George, and then Paul George flipped, obviously, later for Shea in that whole package.
Wow.
That's how you do it.
That's
Trace.
how you do it, right?
Yep.
I was going to ask you, Slates, because, Sam Presti is viewed as the gold standard among GMs out there. Is there anything that he's done that can be replicated in Sacramento? Like, we're trying to build something in the Kings. Everybody said, well, just tank like OKC did. Well, they didn't actually tank. Like, Shea sort of, he
was already there.
He was already there. And you had to have a Paul George to be able to trade away. Is there anything that other teams, specifically Sacramento, can learn from what OKC did?
Patience, probably. Drafting well. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's a very hands-off owner in Oklahoma City he empowered. Clay Bennett was the Sonics owner at the time. He interviewed Sam Presti, who was the Spurs, executive 30-year-old, was so impressed by him. He gave him full control and has allowed him to do two real, deep, comprehensive rebuilds. And then the other thing, Sam Presti's really detailed scouter of, not only just the type of players, but the type of people he wants to bring in the organization. Obviously, he's built two dynasties by just drafting so well. I mean, we could name 12, all-stars basically that he's drafted. Again, I would say what it goes back to, if you're talking about a rebuild, is Sam Presti's always been given the runway to rebuild, to have bad seasons, to absorb bad contracts at times, trade away. He traded Westbrook at a time that was maybe not that popular, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Anthony Slater with us from The Athletic. Of course, you just posted a story about the OKC defense. I think you talked to Wallace and Caruso and Lou Dort. Is OKC's defense going to be the deciding factor in this series? And what stood out with you as you talked to those three?
They're really committed to their roles, and they're obviously very good at it. But Wallace is interesting to me because he is a lottery pick. He can score more. He was a good scoring guard at Kentucky, but he just accepted at the age of 21 that this is going to be his role at this time, which is just defensive menace off the bench. Caruso, trading Josh Giddey for him looks like a stroke of genius by Sam Presti. It's the small moves and the big moves. And then Dort, undrafted guy, they've built into a stopper. And just the way they go about it. I mean, they're turning people over at a historic rate. And I think that's sure, they have Shea and they have some scoring, but to me, where they win and where they're dominant is on the defensive end.
Yeah. And by the way, it sounds like you may have a young person back there. It's fine. Don't worry about it, Sam. We're all parents here, and we totally understand it.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens when we go to Oklahoma City. I got to bring the kid around. He's spinning a basketball.
There you go.
The 2-year-old. So
no problem.
All right. Future NBAer right there on his hands.
I hope so. I'll take that. They make pretty good money.
Hey, Slates, we got the OKC and Indiana in the finals there. nobody's really given Pacers a shot. How do you see this playing out? Can the Pacers get a few games in this series?
I think they can. I think game one is like a dangerous game for the Thunder, and a game that if you're the Pacers and you want to be in this series, you want to steal. Right, they're fresher. They've played sooner. The Thunder, I think, have been off 6-7 days. Right, that sometimes can lead to rust. I would say it did in the second round. Right, the Thunder swept the Grizzlies, had more than a week off, and lost game one to Denver. And I think that Denver series went longer than people expected, partly because of that game one. So. The Pacers just like kind of run and gun and hit some shots in game one, as they did in New York, right? They won that series probably because of that upset they had in game one. So I would pick it probably Thunder in 5, but if they win tomorrow, you could be talking about a deep series.
How surprised are people inside and around the NBA that you've talked to about the Tibbs firing?
Pretty surprised that like the New York actually kind of pulled the trigger on it, but you'd heard for a while that there was like maybe some angst growing there, and there's been some issues this season. Remember when Mikal Bridges kind of like publicly complained about the minutes and some of the other stuff that's happening in New York? But the thing was, they impressed in the postseason, right? They went longer than people thought. They beat the Celtics. So you thought that might have saved his job. But as we're seeing in the league, coaches are being fired quicker. And I think front offices are just willing to pull the trigger, even if it's going to be a controversial move.
Anthony Slater joining us on site for the NBA Finals, Game 1 tomorrow. I want to bring it back closer to home, Slates. When we're looking at the Kings, we're spitballing point guards out there, free agents. What do you think, and what do you get the sense is one of the first things that Scott Perry is looking to do with this roster? Are you hearing anything about the Kings?
Point guard, right? You kind of mentioned it, and it's been in a rare way, I think, publicly mentioned by Sabonis, by Doug Christie, by like people who you wouldn't expect them to be so blunt and transparent that like, hey, point guard was such an issue for this roster late in the season. But the fact that they're saying that tells me that is agenda item number one. Who is going to be kind of in some ways running the team. Obviously, if you have a Sabonis, if you have some of the other ball handlers and scorers, Levine, that they have, you don't need your point guard to be your best player, but they need somebody to set the table better.
Does that make you think, Slates, on a follow-up here, that DeMar's not going anywhere? Is that why is that such a necessity if the current roster is going to change? Does this lead us to believe that we're going to have the same roster, just an added point guard next year?
Well, DeMar might be the salary that's needed to get that point guard, right? And because I don't think you necessarily want to just think you can get your answer on the minimum market. You need salaries to move and potentially to trade. And I'm not sure how much DeMar desires to be on that Kings team next year. We'll see. But I think just fit and what he signed up for and what no longer is necessarily the case in Sacramento might lead to that change.
All right, Slates. We're enjoying your work. Look forward to your coverage of the finals. Enjoy it. Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. And my kid will talk to you soon, too, I'm sure.
All right.
No problem. Yeah. We will look forward to that. Take it easy. Yeah.
All right, fellas.
All right, Slates.
Yeah. Anthony Slater from Oklahoma City.
Our boy, he get to cover the finals.